Hello and welcome once again to the Powerhouse Woman Show. I'm your host, Monica Pierre. Have you ever found yourself second guessing yourself, second guessing yourself again and again? Or maybe you're not speaking up, playing small, shrinking, hesitating. Well, that's what we're going to talk about, how powerhouse women can show up authentically, but as high achieving, with high achieving confidence. We're so excited to have on the show someone who's really talking about this, having this conversation, Dr. Lacey, psychologist, keynote speaker, leadership coach, and founder and CEO of H&L Legacy. And H&L Legacy really has an important meaning in her life as well. Hello, Dr. Casey. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Again, such an honor to be with you, Monica.
Oh, thank you. And the first time we met for the very first time in life was the Thrive in 25 Women's Conference in the Chicago area. And you know, when people walk into the room or you notice them, you go like, I've got to get to know this person better. That was you, Dr. Casey, just a magnet. So thanks for being on the show to talk about this topic of just having not just confidence, but high achieving confidence and going from shrinking to really embracing your confidence level and what that means. And first of all, tell us a little bit about your backstory because it is remarkable how you used confidence. You used not shrinking and not playing small to really achieve some major things in your life.
Oh, yes. So for myself, again, it's Casey Lacey, which is fun, very memorable. I leaned into that name. It's very good for branding purposes. But my own personal story, kind of complicated beginning in terms of unstable family. I moved out on my own at 16, went on to college, got my degree in psychology, went on, got my PhD in counseling psychology by the age of 26. And then I dove headfirst into my career. And so climbed the ladder, oftentimes the only woman at the table in higher education. And so for myself, I found these situations where people pleasing, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, they were like my best friends that were there with me. And I realized it came a pivotal moment in my career where I had actually applied for a position and did not get it. Was told by a friend on the search committee that they were hiring a man. And so I didn't even have a chance.
And
But
they told you that to your
yeah,
face?
my friend did secretly.
Okay.
And I realized though that even when I applied for that job, I didn't believe in myself. Like I kind of did it because someone had encouraged me, and then they hired someone, it didn't work out. And I realized I have everything it takes. And I was also reading a book that really hit me over the face. And I realized how I was playing small. So I went and I advocated for myself after that person ended up leaving and got the VP position and was in that role as the only woman for many years. And so just watching my confidence throughout my life, but also watching other women. There's such untapped potential in women when we get out of our own way and we understand the psychology of it.
How does playing small show up? I know it could be different for different people, but what have you found? Because you're a researcher, you're a psychologist, you know, you do when you speak and you give your talks and presentations, you lean heavily on research as well. So how does it look?
Yeah. So for women, there's lots of different ways. From the career aspect, there's a famous study, the Hewlett-Packard study, where they showed that women, when we apply for jobs, we will only apply for the job if we meet anywhere from like 90 to 100% of the qualifications. Men will apply if they meet 60% of the qualifications. So we are self-rejecting from the get-go just because of our beliefs. So there's a lot of little behavioral things we do. We over apologize, we shrink. You know, when we talk about our accomplishments, we say we instead of I. And so there's all of these things that we do, and we're socialized. So it's not, I'm not blaming women for that at all. There's a lot of systemic cultural challenges. But those are the things that we do in terms of like that playing small and how we talk about ourselves. We're terrible at taking compliments, just saying thank you. I know we want to downplay it, justify it. So we show our lack of confidence shows up in how we speak verbally, our nonverbals, and also just the things that we do in terms of our actions.
Right. And I've noticed, and this is anecdotal, this is not based on any study I've done, but when we play small, we get brought into the organization because they see us as a doer and
Yeah.
not as a leader. what does the data show, or what have you noticed or you've researched on that?
Yeah, that definitely ties into especially like the people pleasing and perfectionism. You get seen as this like doer and go to. But really, when I talk about people pleasing and perfection, I always say I'm a people pleaser and perfectionist in recovery. We do those things because they're coping mechanisms. And a lot of times it's like our upbringing and even socialization. We equate it with safety. If I'm, if I say yes and if I'm agreeable, I'm likable, I'm not going to be rejected. But when it comes to like downplaying, we've got to just be aware of those behaviors because they do affect in terms of how we're working in the workplace. And that doer, then we get stuck in that role rather than being seen as that leader, because we're not, taking on some of these other different behaviors that will show that confidence and potential.
Well, as people follow you and get to know you, your website has one of the most, it's so rich. There's so many things that you can tap into or download or find out how to book you or have you speak to an organization. One of the things that you say came as a result of what your clients wanted, and that is the confidence boost pep talk.
Yeah.
How do we pep ourselves up?
I mean, it's one of those where, again, I was speaking there, like several individuals just asked, they're like, I just want to listen to you for like 5 minutes before. So whether it's like a big interview or, you have a big meeting or something's coming up and you just need that boost, like that's where I was like, okay, I'll put together kind of a 5-minute pep talk, because I think of like, I'll call my best friend, she gives me those pep talks. And as women, we do this to each other. We're always lifting each other up. And so I created a 5-minute download where people can listen to this pep talk before a big meeting. And I just walk them through and kind of give them that boost of energy because we all need that. Our brains sometimes are naturally protective and can be negative, and we have that inner critic. And so having that other voice was really the intention behind the pep talk.
One or two little things that we could tell ourselves before stepping into a major meeting or a pitch meeting or even being interviewed on a talk show or a podcast.
I think the biggest thing is like, I'm enough. I'm more than enough. And I belong here. You're not lucky. You didn't just fade in. That's a lot of imposter syndrome talk that comes in. But yeah, I'm enough and I belong here.
Oh, that is really amazing. That is really, really good. We talked about imposter syndrome, people pleasing. The other one is perfectionism. How does that show up, particularly for people that we admire and say, like, man, she is so well put together. She strides into the room like she owns the place, only to find out that she doesn't always feel that way.
Yeah, yeah. Perfectionism is one of the like most common that I see with my clients and high achieving women. And truly, it's like we have this like, if I'm perfect, then I will be okay, I will be safe. But in all reality, it's a trap because perfectionism is unattainable. And so we're on this cycle of like, oh, I'm going to be perfect. But I think more now than ever, and I think Monica, you would attest this, people are craving authenticity. We crave realness. And so the best leaders I know, they're the ones that are vulnerable, that own up to their mistakes, that show that failure does happen because we're human. And so the more real we can be and let go of that perfectionism, because we're just going to run ourselves into burnout if we're chasing this unattainable goal of perfection.
Because what I've noticed too is that you either maybe in one or two camps, you get up super early or get up and stay up really, really late so that you overthink, that you run all the scenarios so you could address it. And then on the other side is because you're a perfectionist, you don't really do anything because unless it's perfect, you will not roll it out. You will not do it.
So true. That's that analysis paralysis, like perfection keeps us trapped. And it's not about having high standards. Like I want people to have high standards, but it's about when our self-worth is tied to those standards, doing them perfectly and flawlessly. That's where I see women get really trapped and in that cycle.
And we mentioned that you are founder and CEO of H&L Legacy. And I'm always curious about names, but yours has a really special meaning. Why did you call and name your company, which is a year old now, H&L Legacy?
I named it after my daughters. So I did not name them Macy, Tracy, Stacy, because, I get to be Stacy Lacey. That's fun. So I have Harper Jean, who her middle name is after my granny, who is definitely the matriarch of our family. And then Lauren Rose, who's actually named after my mother-in-law who passed away with cancer. And so they're the reason I do my business. So that's why I named it that, because I want them to grow up in a world where they see confident women, and they also see thriving workplaces. And so that where that confidence is met and supported. And so that's why I named my company.
That is such an amazing point to make because they are watching us, even
Yeah.
though we think they don't pick up their heads from their phones. They are watching and they are seeing and they are noticing how we move in the world as well. So this
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah, this
Absolutely.
last week, my oldest daughter, she told me one of the best things she could ever tell me. She's like, Mom, because I got my hair done. She's like, Mom, you got new hair, you got a new job, you got a new body, because I've actually lost 80 pounds since like leaving toxic workplace. But it was like, she's just, you're so happy. And that's what mattered the most, is like she sees a mom that's confident and happy. And so it's that energy too, where it's like, I love my work and I love what I do. And she gets to see that that's possible. So.
Mm. Well, say more about the work that you do. One of the things that you do is, you're brilliant. You do research. You know how to speak to. You're a keynote speaker. But give us an overview of what you do and how you work with people and how you show up
Yeah.
as a high achieving, confident entrepreneur.
Yes. So keynote speaking is my absolute favorite. And I love coaching individuals too. But in terms of the topics, I cover obviously psychological safety in the workplace, building unshakable confidence, and also work-life integration. So what does that look like? In terms of individual coaching, I love working with women, especially as it relates to confidence in the workplace. So how is that affecting them? And it could be that, they're looking for a promotion or they're in that role. A lot of times I see women, as we climb the ladder, so say, is that once we're at the top, imposter syndrome actually is higher because now we feel like we have to prove ourselves. So we unbreak the psychology and we do that in kind of like a 3-month container. And then I'm launching a group coaching package because of my own experience, but also just demand from several clients that I've worked with, is individuals who are in toxic workplaces. Do you stay or do you go? And how do you navigate that? But it's not just about my coaching. The reason we're doing a group format is because these women need community. I think it can be really lonely and isolating. And so having community with other women, it's supporting each other, but it's also unpacking those tools and how they navigate that decision to protect their peace if they choose to stay, or how do you exit in a way that feels good to you?
What are you hearing from either your clients or other people or people who come to you after you do your keynote or speaking? How are they defining toxic workplaces or toxic environments?
Yeah. So I talk about the concept of psychological safety, which is Dr. Amy Edmondson's research. And that concept is, can I show up in a workplace and be myself, make mistakes, disagree, challenge, status quo without fear of retaliation? And unfortunately, there's lots of workplaces where people feel like they can't be themselves. They're stuck, they're silent. They just don't feel safe to be them. So that's a lot of what I describe, and people feel seen and heard. And they're like, yeah, I can't, because I've seen what's happened to other people, or I just don't feel alignment in terms of like, boss or leadership. And so some of those challenges, what I'm seeing.
And does that exiting take planning, strategy? Because I'll admit sometimes I just grabbed my purse and that was the end of that.
Oh yeah, well, those are beautiful moments too. Yes, I think, and there's those moments where it's like, see, but even after, as you leave a toxic work environment, they're still unpacking a lot of that, because I don't want women to take that same, and I don't want to use the word trauma, but like the trauma of the experience with them to their next place. So some of it's healing and unpacking that. But it's about leaving in a way that feels good to you, because when you're in a workplace where your power has felt like it's been taken away, I want to figure out how we can give you that power back and you exit in a way with that power, not leaving it at the place.
Mm-hmm. And most of your clients, why do they come to you, particularly when you're working one-on-one with them and they look at imposter syndrome or they're looking at perfectionism or whatever, people pleasing? When do they decide that this is what I need and I need it now?
Yeah. They get to that point where it's like your pain points where like enough's enough. They get exhausted by the overthinking, the analysis paralysis, just the time, the mental energy that's spent with people pleasing, imposter syndrome, perfectionism. And so they're like, I want to change this and I want to see that it's possible. A lot of times too, they'll start to see early signs of burnout. They just don't have the same drive for their particular positions. They're wore out. They're not taking care of themselves in lots of different ways. And so that's when they're like, okay, I need a coach. And that's where I love to work with them. And sometimes too, it's as people are wanting to get promoted, like I know this is coming and I really want to make sure that I'm working on myself so that I am a better leader career when I land this role.
And finally, before we go, Dr. Casey, what about resumes? And you talk about a resume audit to make sure that the story you think you're telling is the whole story about your brilliance and your high achieving confidence.
Yes. This was something, again, that came up with clients. And I've spent lots of years reviewing resumes and being on hundreds of search committees. And I realized that women would play small, and we were talking about that selling themselves shorts, even in their writing. So the language that you use, looking at even your LinkedIn, like, are you adequately celebrating yourself? Because we're not so good at that. So making sure the verbs and the choice of words, those things are there. And there's also ways to strategically position yourself so that you're highlighting more that future career. Because we're sometimes we just list out our job description rather than like, let me write this for the job that I'm going for in my future career and really highlight that so that you're positioning yourself well.
Excellent. So we are out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. How can people learn more? Send them to that website. That's just amazing. And
Yes.
how can they be in touch?
Yes, definitely on my website. So CaseyLacey.com. I'm also really big on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can search Dr. Casey Lacey, Instagram, social media, all the other stuff, but LinkedIn is my primary one. So they can definitely find me there.
Wonderful. Thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Monica.
Okay.
It's meant the world to me.
Oh, thank you. Hang on just a second. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Our show is brought to you by the Powerhouse Woman Show, our 6-month coaching program where we help you to unveil, discover, develop, and deliver your talk and your story that shows in the world that you belong and you are a high achieving, confident person. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye now.